Hey guys, how you doing today? Just thought I'd fire up a video here, talk about the Donald Trump impeachment trial that's gonna kick back up here on Saturday. I mean, as you could probably tell from the title of my channel, I am a communist, right? So I take a different perspective on this trial, right? There's a real left-right dynamic that people play into and that most commentators get stuck on and most people talk about. You're either for Donald Trump or against Donald Trump. It's all about Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is the Donald Trump, and there's all this Donald Trump that we need to Donald Trump, and Trump is the most dangerous Donald Trump that was ever a Donald Trump. And I just think it's goofy, right? As somebody who thinks that the entire capitalist enterprise and the entire capitalist system is a bit fraudulent, and by a bit fraudulent I mean completely unreformable and needs to be removed, that we need to transfer the shares away from the capitalists entirely and into the hands of the working class to completely eliminate the capitalist class from our society. They've shown themselves to be completely fraudulent. I find this entire endeavor, this entire conversation that's happening amongst these capitalist forces in a capitalist society to be completely theatrical, right? It's totally without merit. The the accusation that's come down on Donald Trump is that he fomented a coup attempt on the Capitol, that he an insurrection or what have you. But this and perhaps that is the case. And where does that energy come from, right? Why are these people upset? That, the people who, think about what's really actually happening with Donald Trump. You've got a game show host who has managed to convince people he actively abandons, like the Trump tax cut is a complete abandonment of anybody who lives in America, that he's able to convince these people that he's actually on their side and he's actually interested in helping them and he's actually interested in moving them forward in any meaningful kind of a way, instead of just using them as sort of political pawns for his own personal gain, which is exactly what they are. And how has he managed that? How has he done that? Well, the only thing that he has done differently from any other politician is he has acknowledged the position that the political class has put most Americans, right? If you're living in America, chances are good that you have been completely abandoned by your government, right? That you are living in a kind of post-NAFTA world where all of your manufacturing jobs and enormous sectors have been completely gutted. You're living under a neoliberal era which says, oh, you worker, you need to compete with somebody earning $2 a day in India, right? And this is how you remain competitive in a global marketplace, is through plunging wages, removed benefits, essentially turning the place into essentially a slave society, which, I mean, America is a wage slave society. It just refuses to acknowledge it, much like Canada. And so Donald Trump, right, this impeachment process, in my view, is primarily theatrics designed to distract the populace away from the reality that for the last 40 years, both the Democrats and the Republicans have been fighting with each other, and have not been fighting with each other, have been working together to unfold a neoliberal agenda to completely destroy the American public and enslave them for the benefit of wealthy oligarchs. And now Donald Trump is being turned into, and this is being done on purpose, if you ask me, he's being turned into a scapegoat for all of this. That, oh, everything is so terrible and horrible because of Donald Trump. And what we have to do is get rid of Donald Trump. And then once we're rid of Donald Trump, Everything will be so much better and we'll be able to recover. And this is the smokescreen that the Democrats put up in front of themselves as they pretend like they're going to improve things, as they pretend and front as if they're actually interested in improving things. When the reality is that that's all just smokescreens, right? Like, it's all just for pretend. And this is all this impeachment trial is. It's all just for pretend, and it's going to be a whole lot of pomp and a whole lot of circumstance and a whole lot of hullabaloo for absolutely nothing, right? And that's what it's going to be. It's going to be absolutely nothing. That the Democrats are putting up a whole stink so that they can pretend as though they're interested in doing something, but they know that this leads to nowhere. They know that it goes nowhere, and they know that it ends up achieving nothing. They're aware of that, right? Because they don't have support from the Republicans. And this allows them to continue their game of pointing at the Republicans and saying, haha, the reason we can't get anything done is because of these Republicans. When the reality is the Democrats could get plenty done. The Democrats could get plenty done. They just don't want to, right? And it's something that people are just going to have to bite down on and understand. Like, if the situation was that they actually would have the votes within the Democratic Party establishment itself in order to get Donald Trump impeached and actually have something legally happen to him, they wouldn't do it. Why? Because once the precedent is set that you can actually punish a wealthy person for their actions, then this means it could be done to them. This means it could be done to other people. This means that other criminals and other people, like Wall Street bankers or Wall Street hedge funds, for example, this Robin Hood situation, right? Nobody in that situation is going to be punished because that's how capitalism operates. Capitalists are a class that have solidarity with one another, and the only reason why this Trump impeachment is moving forward at all is because there is enough of a groundswell of public support in order to make it so that if the Democrats don't actually pretend to go along with this and pretend as though they're interested in resolving any of this, well, then the public will cotton on to the fact that the Republicans and the Democrats are allies, and they work together. They work together for corporate interests in order to continue the oppression and wage slavery of their own society, and continue that race to the bottom you keep hearing so much about. And this is just theater. It's just theater. Like, Donald Trump is a television star. He knows how to do theater. He understands that he's doing theater. And that if something legitimate could actually happen to him, well, the capitalists aren't going to allow that to happen. The worst thing that's going to happen to Donald Trump is that certain capitalists are going to not agree to do business with him. And that's the worst thing that's going to happen to Donald Trump. Because if anything worse than that happens to Donald Trump, well, then it could happen to Joe Biden, right? But like, the last previous, 8 presidents are guilty of major crimes, right? That should have landed them in prison and sent them to The Hague at the very least. Like, why do we suddenly think that Donald Trump is going to be any different, right? Why do we suddenly think that, oh, the capitalists now are going to have a conscience. Now they're going to do the right thing. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're not going to, quote unquote, do the right thing. This is all just a way for the Democrats to pretend, it's like I've been saying about Justin Trudeau here in Canada, right? And the Liberals. They're not interested in doing anything. They're interested in looking like they're doing things. And as long as they look like they're doing things, and as long as they have a PR team convince you with the right kind of language and the right kind of phrases, right? The right slogans, you're just going to go along with it, right? Oh, yeah, it's not clear-cutting forests. It's biomass, right? It's biomass fuel. That's what it is. It's those sorts of arguments. And we're not going to see an impeachment actually happen. We're not going to see Donald Trump, because the Republicans aren't going to allow it. And that will be the narrative that gets pushed forward. But the truth of the matter is that if the Democrats actually had the votes to impeach Donald Trump will be pardoned, right? The way that Carter pardoned Nixon, right? That Nixon was going to be convicted of crimes. Nixon was going to be put in prison. Nixon was facing something serious, and Carter pardoned him. And why did Carter pardon Nixon? To unify the country. Sound familiar? Sound familiar? Sounds familiar to me, right? Let's say Donald Trump actually faces any kind of actual problems. Let's say he actually faces any kind of legal difficulty. Let's say the FBI or the CIA actually decides to arrest him and there's actually a trial and there's actually something that's going to actually happen to him. Biden will pardon him. And Biden will pardon him because we have to unify the country, right? And then when Donald Trump sees Joe Biden at the country club or wherever they meet, the yacht club, right? He'll say, "Thank you very much. I appreciate it greatly," right? And they'll move on with their lives. Because that's how American politics and that's how capitalism functions, right? That the democracy that we're operating under is just a facade. It's just an illusion that exists in order to obfuscate the actual power structure that exists in America. And that if suddenly the populace were to catch on to the idea that, wait a minute, this whole democracy thing is a complete and total sham, that it is just there to dissipate and obfuscate power, well, then the powers that be would do away with it, right? They would do away with it and they would rule without it, and they would just rule nakedly. Because the democracy that such that it is exists in the United States not so that people can improve their own lot, not so that they can improve their own situation, not so that we can enforce our rights, right? And to actually have the democratic structure function in that way requires mobilization of millions of people to actually make it actually happen, right? And I'm not talking like millions of people who go put their name in a ballot box. I mean, millions of people literally need to surround buildings for extended long periods of time to actually push legislation forward, to actually make anything happen in America, because the system doesn't actually work in the way that people think it does. The way that the American system actually works is that it functions for billionaires to be able to negotiate with one another. That's why it exists. It exists, and that's by design, right? James Madison designed it this way. And so when I tune into the impeachment stuff, and it takes me forever to actually look into it, and I love people are doing good journalism on this. People are doing good reporting. I think Cody Johnson for the Some More News is a great source. He's very well researched, very intelligent, and really captures the insanity of the era. But also, even someone like Seth Meyers does a pretty decent job, even though Seth Meyers is completely on the Democratic side of things, and he will never critique the Democratic establishment. But once you go through that and you actually see how absurd and ridiculous the Trump era has been, it's so blatantly obvious. It's so blatantly obvious that the system doesn't exist for the benefit of the people. The system exists for the benefit of a small group of oligarchs so that they can maintain their power and so that they can maintain their control. And this impeachment trial is no different. It's no different at all. Donald Trump is not going to be impeached, first of all, right? The Republicans are not going to swing on his side. I'll be very surprised if this happens. Be very surprised if he is actually impeached, or if the impeachment goes through. Technically, he has been impeached. Anyway, I don't need to get into the technicalities of it. It doesn't matter. And so why is it happening, right? Why go through the theatrics of this? Well, it's because the Democrats currently do have a great deal of power. They have the House, they have the presidency, they've split the Senate. It's like a 50-50 split in the Senate. They can still push through legislation, right? They can still push through legislation. But so they need an excuse. They need an excuse to be able to say, well, why aren't they pushing through? Why aren't they pushing through the stimulus checks for everybody? Why aren't they pushing through this piece of legislation or that piece of legislation? They could, right? They could. Why aren't they doing it? Oh, well, we need to deal with the Trump impeachment. That's what we need to put all our power into, right? We've got to deal with, you can go back in my videos. I've been calling this the whole time. That the reason why the Trump impeachment and that the Democrats are going to turn this into a full-scale anti-fascist witch hunt, that they are going to proceed to explode this into like full-scale committees. And they'll take the most progressive people, right? They'll take AOC and Bernie Sanders and these very progressive people who are involved in the progressive movement such that it exists in the United States, and they will put them on these committees, and they will set them to the task of routing out the fascists that exist in their society. And the entire society will stand up and go, good, we should do this. Rout out the fascists, and let's really do a good, thorough job of this. And the Democrats will kick up their heels and go, wonderful, and give themselves another tax cut. Right? And they'll do everything they can to obfuscate and propagandize the populace and convince them into believing that the Democrats are somehow different than the Republicans. What the heck? I'm near the end of the video. Like, case in point, Joe Biden proclaiming that they're going to pull troops out of offensive procedures in Yemen, right? It's a meaningless statement that's not going to result in anything. The more analysis has been done with this. Abby Martin did really good analysis on this, right? The Biden administration says that they're going to stop offensive measures in Yemen. Oh, okay. Well, did you know that America considers the Yemen war to be a defensive war, right? So if they're going to stop offensive operations in a defensive war, it's a meaningless statement. And this is exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to how the Democrats propagandize and obfuscate the desires of the public, right? Things like Medicare for all are just going to fade into the background. Things like a basic income are just going to fade into the background. The stimulus checks eventually just fade into the background. And they'll all fade into the background as the Democrats ramp up an anti-fascist movement, which will absolutely benefit the power structure completely. The power structure is more than happy if you go after Bubba Smith, right? KKK member, right? The oligarch power structure is more than happy if you go after the Viking guy, right? Like if the Viking guy is brought up and we have big tribunals and a whole investigation to really stick it to Viking hat guy, right? Yeah, the power structure will be more than happy than that. And the longer that takes, the better, right? The more time they can chew up, the more progressives they can funnel into that, so that progressives are going to be spending their time doing that instead of actually pursuing meaningful legislative changes in the United States, the better, right? And and this is how I view the Trump impeachment. It's just theatrical. It's just theatrical that should it actually go through and Trump actually be impeached, Biden will pardon him, and just like Carter pardoned Nixon, right? And he'll do it for the same reason: unity, right? To unify the country. We can't tear the country apart like this, right? And so I suspect that this is where this goes, that the progressive movement gets funneled into an anti-fascist, McCarthyian style tribunal system, and the left largely just goes back to sleep, right? The left, such as it exists in the United States, just goes back to sleep, the way that it went to sleep under Obama, right? That Joe Biden will stand up and say some meaningless trivialities, make some meaningless statements about how, oh, well, this will change and that'll change, but nothing is going to change, right? And if it does change, it'll be like how the Obama administration changed the face of Libya, right? It'll be those sorts of changes. Okay. That's the end of me, you guys. I think all of these guys are completely fraudulent. I think that we should take all of their wealth and all of the shares that they have and transfer it into the working class. I think that these guys have shown themselves to not only be incompetent, but also willfully destructive and evil. We should strip them of all of their power and remove them from the national conversation completely. Starting by transferring the shares away from the away from the capitalist class into the working class, to completely eliminate the capitalist class from our society and end this antagonistic struggle in totality. If you've reached the end of this video and you're not subscribed, you go ahead and subscribe. I make videos like this on the daily. I just recently was fired from my job because I brought up unionization on the job, and so they fired me for it. That's made me double down on my position. I've been reading a lot recently, so I'm doing a lot of book report kind of stuff. Oh, that reminds me, I do want to shout out this idea that people have been comparing Donald Trump's coup to Hitler's coup. There are differences, right? Hitler actually spent time in prison. Donald Trump is never going to see a prison cell because Germany at least had laws, right? America has no laws. It's a completely lawless, failed state. And everything you're seeing here is just theatrics. Anyway, so please subscribe. Here's the like button right here. You can hit that like button. Doink doink, free to do. Here's the share button. Really piss off your uncle or your conservative dad. Go right ahead with that. And hey guys, if you want to give me a buck, right? $1 is all I need. Down in the description below, my Patreon. Just give me a buck, right? Really helps out. Oh, and hey, why not right here? Just big shout out to the guys who are actually donating already. You guys are awesome. You're wonderful. Thank you so much. Those donations came at exactly the right time for me. I really needed it. So, thank you so much, guys. Good luck out there. We're gonna need it.